and they had a lot of members despite being so outdated. And there were multiple Polish resistances across the board. So,
yeah.
but the largest one was loyal to the government.
So did it seem like they were then disorganized in the way that they were?
They were disorganized. A lot of people actually joined them, and they did very successfully in disrupting supply lines.
Oh, okay. Okay, so it almost seems like a little bit more like guerrilla warfare style, where it wasn't like an organized effort. It was more like little groups trying to stop the Germans?
It was several thousand people.
Okay, got it. Okay, so not little relatively then. Okay. Okay, so Vladek is a part of this, right? And he's drafted by the government. So he is one of these, he's like officially part of the Polish resistance, Polish army. And he talks about how he had a few months of training and then he was kind of on reserve and they could call him up, you know, and they call him up to be part of this. And his reaction, he seems quite like a fish out of water at first. So let's go to page 48 and look at the layout there. All right, I think the first two panels of page 48 do a really good job of explaining what the situation might have been like in his head. Do you see how, I mean, look at his eyes on that pale face and how his eyes look so wide compared to how they normally do the eyes in this. And that we kind of see his worry in those little bags under his eyes. And then in the next frame, he hides in the bushes and he's like completely blacked over. So that he's almost like, I'm not going to be human anymore. And do you see what he's thinking in that second frame? He says, why should I kill anyone? So what does that tell us about his character at the beginning of this little event in his life, this major event in his life? Thanks. There's a copy of Mouse on the back counter. What does that tell us about what kind of character Vladek is and what he's thinking about? Yeah, Maggie.
He just seems to innocent to like anybody who's just like, what is happening? He's almost like clueless. He's just like, I don't know what's going on.
Yeah, which I think reflects a lot of what Zach was saying, which is like which is like he's caught by surprise just as an individual. The country's caught by surprise. He's caught by surprise in the situation. He hasn't really imagined what this was going to feel like. And this is when he's having this philosophical thought. I mean, you'd think that a soldier in battle maybe would have thought of this before, but now in this moment, he's like, hang on, what am I doing here? Why should I kill anyone? Like, what kind of personal investment do I have in this war? And then he says, but when I looked in my gun, I saw a tree. And the tree was actually moving. Well, if it moved, I had to shoot. It held up a hand to show it was hurt, to surrender. But I kept shooting and shooting until finally the tree stopped moving. Who knows? Otherwise, he could have shot me. So I think we get like quite a character arc just on this one little page. I think we get it in the narration and we get it in the style of the images. So what I want you to do is I want you to talk to people. How does Vladek change over the course of this page? Just talk to the person next to you for a minute. How does Vladek change over the course of the page?
Or like in the Little Mermaid when Sebastian like get cooked, that's what it looks like. When he's like hiding inside his shell, that's what it looks like. So, there's where my brain takes me.
Okay, tell me about how his character changes through the course of the page. Maggie and then Keegan.
It starts with some like, he starts so like innocent, like, why am I doing this? Like, what's going on?
Yeah.
And all of a sudden he's like it just totally changed, like right as he like went through, it's like, oh, time for war, and then it just totally just went like, well, I guess I have to do it. So then he just did it anyways.
Yeah, I like that idea that it's like looking through the perspective of the gun that has made that change. It's almost like, to go to Xavier's point, it's like almost like he becomes part of that technology that he has. And he's like, now I am the gun. So now I can kind of remove the humanity from this situation, and I can see I just need to shoot like a gun would. Keegan, and then to Ashton.
Yeah, kind of going off that, he kind of like dehumanizes himself, and it's like, well, if it moves, I should shoot it, and he kind of like disassociates with what he believes, kind of, because at the beginning he's like, why should I kill anyone? And then at the very end he's like, oh, if it moves, I should shoot it.
Yeah, so it's like, I like that word disassociate that you use. Let's continue with that word. Like he disassociates from it. And then at the very end, he says, well, he could have shot me. So it's like this process of I'm, associating. This is painful. I'm confused. I don't know what to do as a human being in this situation. To, I'm a gun. If it moves, I got to shoot it. To, okay, it was a good thing that I shot it and kept shooting it because it could have killed me, right? So it's got this kind of circle to it. Ashton, and then Peyton and Zachary.
I felt like in the beginning of the page, he was more like, all right, why am I even here? Why should I shoot anyone? Why are we even fighting this war?
Mm-hmm.
No, but then like when his life is on the fight, he like went into attack mode or something like that.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I have to protect myself.
Yeah, and I think this says a lot then about how we view other characters and how we view how he has changed as a person from the beginning of the war to the end of the war. How certain traumatic events completely change who you are and what you expect of yourself. Like he maybe went into this war thinking, I would never kill another person, to it becoming almost automatic for him. Peyton, Zachary, and then.
I feel like when he was saying otherwise he could have shot me, he was trying to justify what happened because of his trauma. And
Yes.
once he did something, he didn't realize he was actually going to do it. And he was like, well, I did it only because I had to.
Yeah, because he doesn't go with the justification first. He doesn't say, oh, I better shoot because he might shoot me. He shoots and then he justifies. I think that order is really important. Yeah.
So earlier it mentioned he wasn't shooting at all, so he pretty said his gun was cold. And you can see that pivotal first shot in the fifth panel, I believe it is, where you actually see the shot itself.
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of has a metaphor, once you start firing, you don't stop firing. And after he takes that pivotal first shot, he just keeps shooting and shooting and shooting.
Yeah, good. So it's the choice only has to be made at the beginning of it. And once you've made your choice, you have to follow through with it, it seems like. It seems very, very hard to stop at that point, or even unnecessary, because you've already crossed over that barrier. Yeah.
So what I was realizing is that in the beginning, he's saying, I would never shoot anyone.
Mm-hmm.
And then when he says that he's shooting the other soldier, he like referred to the soldier as an it, which kind of like dehumanizes the other soldier. And then in the end, he says he again.
Yes.
Kind of like takes away that it's an actual person.
Absolutely. So he says he in the justification, but while he's actually committing the violence, and again, it's justified violence. He's a soldier in war, but he says finally the tree stopped moving. He keeps referring to it as something that is not human, as that kind of disassociation that Keegan was talking about. Let's compare this though to page 53. No, it might be a different page. I'm not sure. 50, sorry. Just page 50. Okay, I want you to look at the images here. So it says, attention, all prisoners will carry our dead and wounded to the waiting Red Cross trucks. Where are you going? I saw a wounded over by the river. Yes, here. His blood ran out, so he died from bleeding to death. Carry him over to the truck with the others. His name was Jan, and I knew that I killed him. And I said to myself, well, at least I did something. So again, talk to the person next to you about what has happened to Vladek's character in the course of these couple of pages. Talk to each other about the look of it and what he's actually saying. Just for a minute.
But that innocence of like, why should I do it my way? At least I'm being useful, at least I'm part of like this resistance, at least I'm making a difference, you know, it's just trying to make himself feel better about it. And you can even tell it in the font. He says, and I knew that I killed it. I kind of like feel his guilt, and it makes the eyes feel cold. It's like he attached himself to something.
He says if he
Okay, tell me, what has changed about Vladek's character now in these last images, Peyton?
It's almost like trying to get rid of his guilt.
Mm.
Like, well, at least I did something. He was gonna take me prisoner.
Okay, good. So it's like I've contributed to a war effort. I did something. I didn't just sit there. And this might be a way of like making him not feel guilty about having to do the thing that he had to do. Yeah. How do we know that he might be feeling a little bit guilty? Keegan?
So in the page earlier, he, like I said, he like dehumanizes the
Yes.
person that he shot.
Yes.
And then in this one, he actually realizes that this person has a name. And then at the next one, he's like, well, at least I did something. So he kind of dehumanizes the person again, kind of justifies that that person did have a name.
Good.
So he's kind of like back and forth with himself and like that world.
Good. And you notice the images too, like not just the way he talks about it dehumanized, but like, do you see on page 48 how you still can't tell that that thing is a fully a, I guess not human, a cat, but human. You can't tell that it's human, right? Because it's covered by this tree. You don't have to look at its face. Even in the image where his eyes kind of glow through the tree, he looks monstrous, right? Whereas if you look at the image on page 50, that's a person. And you see the blood coming out of his mouth too. It's like he can't avoid the violence. He can't avoid that this person has a name and is not a thing. And yet then he kind of goes back and he says, okay, but this is kind of what I had to do. So he confronts the humanity of the person and then tries to take a step back and see it as an effort, a resistance effort, rather than just him murdering someone. There's difference between killing in war and killing not in war. Yeah, Lydia.
Earlier when we talked about him being like timid and kind of innocent, and he was like, why should I have to kill anyone? I don't think that changes.
Mm-hmm.
He just feels guilt for killing the person, so he tries to justify that guilt so he isn't feeling that way.
Mm-hmm.
I know we're not talking about page 49, but on page 49 it says my commander made me shoot, like it wasn't a decision I was making for myself. And so I think this entire scene is just talking about how he didn't want to do it, but he keeps trying to justify why he did, so he feels better.
Yes, absolutely. And one of those ways that he tries to justify is by saying this was not totally in my control. There's two ways here, I think, that you're referring to. It's like one is the dehumanization of the enemy. This thing is not human, so I can hurt it, right? And then the other way is someone made me do it. It wasn't my choice. And so I at least did something. I at least like acted. And that's all that can be expected of me. Yeah. And I think you're going to see that echoed. I mean, those themes are seeming familiar in World War II stories, aren't they? How much control you really have over your own actions and how to place blame on people if they don't actually have total control over their actions. So then let's go to, just really quickly, let's talk about his religious belief. So this is on page 54. He says, where does he say this? That he's religious. Oh yeah. Thank you. So every day I bathed and did gymnastics to keep strong, and every day we prayed. I was very religious, and it wasn't else to do. I really like that line. I was very religious. Also, there was nothing else to do. So what does that tell us right away about Vladek's like kind of religious conviction? Ashton?
Like maybe he's religious in that moment. Like maybe if he's I'm guessing that he's somewhat religious before the war.
Mm-hmm.
But then now since his life is in danger, now he's being very religious, trying to get help.
Yeah, good. We haven't seen Hebrew text until this point in the story, right? So religion hasn't played a huge part in Vladek's life until this point. And here he's saying, I did it because honestly there was nothing else. There wasn't much else to do. And I was religious, so this made sense. It fit into who I am, right? And then one way that religion comes into this again is on 57 with this idea of Parshas Truma. Parshas Truma. So I had to look this up. I didn't know about this, but basically every week on Shabbat, so on Saturday, the Jewish Sabbath, right? The rabbi will read a section of the Torah. And it will stay the same each year. So it's like every, January, every first week of January, we read this part. Every third week of February, we read this part. And so Parshas Truma is one little section of the Torah that they read on a certain date every certain Saturday every single year. So that's what Parshas Truma is, and he has this vision that he's going to be free on Parshas Truma, and it actually turns out to be true. So you see the vision; it's very dreamlike. It's very almost like mythical,
Like a vivid dream.
Yeah. I mean, to me, that looks a little bit like a night terror. It's a little bit scary the way it's looming over him. But then it happens that on Parshas Truma, on page 63, where does he find out that he's to be out? Where is he? 59, yeah, 58, 59, thank you. On page 58 and 59, he finds out that this was actually the day, and he says, you mean your Parsha Truma dream actually came true? Yes, this is for me a very important date. I checked later on a calendar. It was this Parsha on the week I got married to Anya, and this was the Parsha in 1948 after the war on the week before you were born, or the week you were born. And so it came out to be this Parsha you sang on the Saturday of your bar mitzvah. So he's talking about how this date has been meaningful to him throughout his life. So the question I want to pose to you is, do you think that this is an example of true religious belief or not? Is Vladik a religious person? Does he have religious commitments? Yeah. Yes? Okay.
I think maybe before, how he kind of like there was nothing else to do, he might not have been fully invested. But I think ever since that dream and kind of like all of these significant moments kind of like cemented the importance of his religious belief.
Okay, so he maybe had to have a sign from God, but then once he got this sign from God, he's like seeing all the patterns in his life, and he's like, oh, God has had, an impact on my life. Ashton?
It sounds like to me that you were like a lukewarm Jew or something like that, because what's interesting to me, like he hasn't talked about anything about religion before the book, like about being Jewish and whatnot. But then, like when his life's in danger, he's like actually praying and like and that sounds like something like lukewarm practitioner of religion.
Okay, so it's kind of like that idea that there are no atheists in the trenches. Have you heard that phrase before? Like when there is a life and death situation, everyone tries to turn to a higher power because they feel like, why do they do that? Actually, I'll point that out to you. Why do you think in like people's hardest moments, they turn to religion quite often? Keegan?
I feel like it's out of their power to change anything, so they kind of have to believe in a higher power to change things, because they know they can't.
Okay, so it's like about maybe a moment that feels like you don't have any personal choice, that you can't act, and so you maybe turn to somebody else to act on your behalf, right? And I do think that might be what's going on here. So as we go through, let's keep thinking about how committed Vladik is to that idea. Is Vladik committed to this idea that somebody else has control over his life, higher power, has control over things, or does Vladik believe that he can change things? Because that becomes a really important distinction. Okay, let's stop there. Let's stop talking about this. Pull out, your computers are already logged in again. Go to that Utah Online Library again. And I will plug in my computer and show you how to get there. Shocked me. Did the sign up sheet go all the way around? Did anyone not get a chance to sign up? Awesome. All right, so as you're getting that going, I will be getting you the books based on who signed up for what. And some of the books I am printing PDFs of them because we don't have physical copies. And so you'll have a physical copy, but I want to decide, like, I needed to know how many I needed of each book. So they will be ready for you for sure by next class, but they'll be ready for you by Friday afternoon. If you'd like to get a head start on reading these books, come see me on Friday and I'll give you your copy. What was that?
Where do I go when I'm on the my
Oh, you go to, I'm going to actually just show you up here on the screen. It'll be easier.
Okay, so I will stop recording.